She looked at me with a calmness that should have felt comforting, but what followed pierced deeper than any scream ever could. She asked if she could have one last night with him, the man she used to love. Not because she still loved him, she claimed, but because she needed closure. Closure, the kind of word people use to excuse reopening wounds they never intended to close. And in that moment, time didn't stop, it slowed just enough to show me everything I refused to see before. This wasn't a sudden shift, this wasn't a momentary lapse, it was a quiet truth finally asking for permission to speak. I said yes, not because I was okay, not because I understood, but because I wanted to see what she would do with freedom. And freedom always reveals the soul. She smiled, maybe with relief, maybe with guilt dressed in soft gratitude. She thought she'd return to find me waiting, still devoted, still hers, still blind. But when the door closed behind her that night, I didn't wait, I didn't rage, I didn't beg for a reason. I vanished, no note, no text, no scene, because sometimes the loudest heartbreak isn't in screaming, it's in choosing silence where chaos was expected. She came back to an empty room, empty walls, and the haunting echo of her own choice. The wedding, it never happened. Because marriage demands more than presence, it demands loyalty when no one's watching. And when given the chance to prove it, she reached backward, not forward. She chose a ghost and lost the man who was still breathing for her. Let them call it dramatic, let them call it cruel, but I call it clarity. Because love without respect is a prison in disguise. And I chose freedom. Betrayal doesn't wear the face of a monster. It doesn't come crashing in like a storm. It walks in slowly, wearing the smile you once trusted. It sounds like the voice that used to whisper forever under warm sheets. It wears the perfume you bought her. It stands in your kitchen, sipping coffee from the mug you gave her last Christmas. You never expect betrayal to be so quiet, so polite, so reasonable. When she asked, it didn't feel like a stab. It felt like a negotiation, like she'd rehearsed the words. Soft, calm, wrapped in the silk of I just need to heal before I start forever with you. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She looked me in the eye and asked if she could spend one last night with him. Not because she still wanted him, she said, but because she needed to close the door properly. Like love is a room you leave politely. Like loyalty is a force. It you turn off once you're done drinking from it. And I stood there, silent, not because I didn't feel rage, but because my rage was too stunned to speak. You think you'll shout in a moment like that. You think your chest will explode, that words will fall out like broken glass. But sometimes, the deepest cuts don't bleed right away. I looked at her, and saw not the woman I planned to marry, but the stranger she had always been beneath the surface. It wasn't the request that shattered me. It was how easily she made it, how casually she offered a betrayal and dressed it in emotional intelligence. Closure, she said, as if the past were a door, and she needed to gently shut it with him one last time. As if love were neat, clean, manageable, as if it made sense to sleep with a ghost before walking down the aisle with the living. What she didn't understand is that I had already been closing doors, one by one, for her. Every old flame, every wandering thought, every path that didn't lead to her, I had sealed them shut, but she left hers wide open. She left a window cracked for the wind to call him back in, and when it did, she didn't shut it. She invited him, not out of love, not out of longing, but out of something worse, entitlement. She believed I would understand. She thought love made me so soft, I'd say yes and stay. She thought my silence was submission. She forgot that sometimes silence is a trap, and when it closes, it doesn't creak, it slams shut. When you give someone your future, you don't expect them to borrow from their past. When you hold out your hand with a ring, you don't expect them to hold another man's body one last time. And yet, there she was making the ugliest betrayal look elegant, framing it as honesty, coating it in vulnerability, selling infidelity as growth. But what she didn't realize was that betrayal doesn't need to scream to destroy you. It only needs a calm voice, and a partner too in love to see the knife. I stood there, no words, just 1,000 shattered thoughts clawing at my throat, and I said yes, not because I agreed, but because I needed to see what she would do with freedom. What kind of woman asks to taste her past before committing to your future? What kind of woman assumes you'll stay afterward? The kind of woman who's never been left. The kind of woman who thinks love makes you stupid. The kind of woman who sees loyalty as leverage, and I gave her that freedom not to test her, but to reveal her, because betrayal doesn't arrive dressed in evil. It walks in wearing the face you once kissed good night, and it asks for one last favor before it destroys everything you were building. I watched her walk out the door, not in rage, not in desperation, but in revelation. She thought she had won something. She thought love would wait while she tasted her past one final time. She thought I would still be standing there when she returned like a statue carved from forgiveness. But the truth is, when someone shows you who they are, you don't argue. You don't lecture. You leave, not to punish them, not to make a point, but because staying would be the slowest form of self-destruction. I didn't need closure. I didn't need an apology. I needed peace. And peace begins where you stop explaining your worth to those who gamble with it. So I chose silence, not because I had nothing to say, but because I had finally said enough by staying too long. People think disappearing is cowardly. They say, real men confront, real men talk it through. But some situations don't deserve confrontation. Some moments are beneath discussion, because if someone can look you in the eye and still choose to hurt you, what is left to say? Disappearance isn't weakness, it's self-respect dressed in quiet. It's the loudest answer to betrayal. It's the final sentence in a chapter you never should have had to write. So I packed my things. Not in anger, but in absolute clarity. Not a trace left. Not a scent of maybe. Just absence. She came back expecting comfort. She came back to finish the story she thought she controlled. But I wasn't part of it anymore. The silence greeted her like a mirror. Every wall she touched, every room she entered, screamed the question she never expected to hear. What did you think would happen? She wasn't used to consequences. She was used to tears, fights, then forgiveness. She was used to men who stayed, men who begged, men who mistook pain for proof of love. But I didn't scream. I didn't wait to be chosen again. Because once someone places you as an option, you stop being a priority. Let them wonder where you went. Let them replay the silence in their head. Let them feel the weight of your absence, because sometimes the only way to teach someone your value is to remove yourself from their story. I didn't leave her because I stopped loving her. I left because she loved herself in ways that destroyed us, and I refused to build a life with someone who treats loyalty like a favor you owe them. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making her suffer. It was about refusing to suffer any longer. You don't owe them your pain. You don't owe them your explanation. Some exits require nothing but your footsteps. Because when words fail, when tears dry, when betrayal disguises itself as honesty, the only answer left is to disappear, not as a ghost, but as someone who finally remembered what it feels like to choose yourself. Let her call it abandonment. Let her tell the world you vanished like a coward. You'll stay silent, because the truth doesn't shout, it echoes. And one day, she'll sit in that silence and realize what she lost wasn't just a man. It was the future she claimed she wanted, but wasn't ready to honor. And by then, you'll be long gone.